He is, I believe, the founder. Yes, a founder and executive director at Les Mills International. It's Phillip Mills. Phillip, thank you for coming and joining us.
Hi there. How are you?
Yeah,
Good
really
evening.
good. Thanks for jumping in. Now, look, we've just kind of talked this all through a bit with Ian about what's going on. Really interested to know why you have signed this letter. What's the reason that you have chosen to say we need to pay more tax?
Oh, look, I think that we've been too obsessed with paying less tax for too long, and I think that we're seeing the results of that. We need to build a world-class education system. If we want to have a great economy and be a great place to live with people realizing their ability and people having a wonderful future, then we have to be investing in things like a world-class educational system. We can't have kids coming to school with empty stomachs and unable to learn. If some of us are worse off, we're all worse off. There's lots of reasons there. We need to go back the other way, and there are a lot of great economies. Most of our business now is in Europe, and you look at some of the economies there, the Scandinavian economies, Germany, Holland, for instance, where they pay a hell of a lot more tax than we do, and they've got better economies, and they've got, they've got world-class systems in education, health, welfare, those sorts of areas, and they're doing a really good job of, to Ian's point just a minute ago, of dealing with climate change, and the moving into the low carbon economy, which is so crucial this century.
How do you feel, Phillip, about, like, for example, we've been warmed up by the current government to say there's going to be no kind of extra excise tax on the cyclone recovery, that sort of thing. It seems that they're not going to introduce a tax to help pay for that. What is it? Is this the third event that's happened in the top half of the North Island? That's linked or due fourth, okay, due to climate change. What do you think about that? Do you think there's other ways around finding the funds for that, or is that for you just a black and white? A tax would be the way to pay for the recovery from these cyclones, and also then help maybe move forward about what to do next with climate change issues?
We have to find a way of funding the recovery, and I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but we do have to get ahead of this. McKinsey has said recently that we need to be spending $2 on adaptation right now for every dollar that we spend on mitigation. Things are going to get worse before they get better. We know that is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's already locked in. We will hopefully go through the energy transition by mid-century, and that will deal with 75-80% of the problem. And then if we don't have any major irreversible events by the end of the century, we will gradually move back towards 20th century climate levels of climate stability. But for a long time, things are going to get worse, and we have to do things that build resilience, that build adaptation, and there are very clear things we can do, but it will take a lot of money. I don't want to paint a picture of sort of doom and gloom. I think there are some wonderful things happening in climate change. The US is, with the Inflation Reduction Act, $376 billion, and a couple of other acts that they've put through. There's about $500 billion worth of stimulus that they've put in here, and that's supposedly going to stimulate about $2 trillion of spending. Europe, after initially having protested that was, in breach of free trade agreements and being told to piss off by the Americans, has then come in with their $376 billion to match. So, there's trillions of dollars there. China are spending heaps on it. So there are a lot of good things happening to move us, predominantly to fossil-free energy and move through the energy transition, which is the crucial part. But we do have to spend on this stuff, and a lot of good things that we can things that we must spend money on to create resilience to these events. Some of them are natural systems. Big part of it is natural systems. and planting a lot of indigenous rainforest, reforesting the country, planting rainforest, regenerating, enriching, planting millions of hectares of rainforest will create drought resilience, flood resistance, localize cooling, stabilize rainfall, protect us, biodiversity, which is crucial. Avoid species extinction, protect a lot of our natural streams around food production, things like that. So many things that that we can do with nature-based systems and regenerative farming techniques and all of those things. Our farmers and our foresters really can become heroes. Unfortunately, radiata pine is not a part of that story. That is a separate story that is about trade, but it contributes nothing. The recent studies have said there's a zero contribution. Our whole ETS is based on radiata pine, which it turns out actually has pretty much a net zero contribution to that. It's not part of the natural systems. But at the other end of it, we do have to create the physical stuff to protect us from flooding, and you've had cities like Amsterdam, which have been underwater for hundreds of years, and so there's some building we've got to do, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff around natural systems and sort of marine stuff and forestry stuff and farming stuff.
Hey, Phillip, I would imagine that you are running circles of people with access to wealth, right? I mean, if you're working in the sort of business world, and I'm interested to get your take on maybe more of a observation or a character question. Why does it seem, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but why does it seem, in your opinion, that many high net individuals are doing the opposite, or are voicing the opposite of what you guys are voicing, which is we want to pay more, whereas so often we hear the narrative in the media, and if it's wrong, say it from your experience, that we pay our fair share, we pay enough, sort of thing. Why do you think that is? It appears that wanting to pay less tax comes with a high net individual. It seems to be contrary to what you guys are saying. Am I wrong in that observation, or is that a fair observation, and why would that be, do you think?
A couple of things. First of all, I'm not sure if you're right or wrong.
Okay.
I don't know, what the data is on what people believe, and it doesn't take many people to skew that. Yes, you may have some loud voices on the other side, but what the bulk of there are an awful lot of people who I deal with. There were 100 who signed this petition, and I've had so many people contact me and say, we didn't know about it. We would sign it. We'd love to sign it. And we've had with Pure Advantage, we've had hundreds of people sign petitions. Hundreds of business leaders around the country sign petitions around climate change. Around all the various aspects of that. So there's a whole bunch of business people who are well aware that if we don't deal with climate change, it's not going to be very good for business, aside from anything else. And if we want to have a successful economy in the future, we have to deal with climate change. Now, I'm not sure that there is. So the second part of my answer to that is, I'm not sure that there is the awareness I would make up of the problems with having a great big wealth gap, and the problems of, I don't think there are many business people who wouldn't agree if you ask them that we want a world-class education system.
Sure.
That is crucial to the future of having a good economy, and everybody is going to say that. I also don't think that there are many business people who, if you ask them, are going to say that they're happy about a situation, about a country that has child poverty, and we hadn't had child poverty since about 1950 through until this three-term national government and the move towards reducing taxes and this whole sort of a monetarist focus that captured the imagination of, everybody, lots of people, including me, were captured by that in the 80s. It seemed like a good idea, but really, when you read economics properly, it's the free market is not going to solve things. You go back to the tragedy of the commons, and you do have to have regulation. You have to have a mix of competition and of regulation if you want to get an ideal economic result. Otherwise, you are going to have people who take advantage of the thing and who destroy public assets. There are some people who have to be regulated, but that's we're starting to wonder a bit. But is that answer your question? Is that
yeah, no, I'm hearing you.
So with this letter now, I guess, out in the wild, and as you say, more people sort of going, well, I want to put my name on this. How do we keep this conversation going in the space when you've got people like Nicola Willis saying that it's just the politics of envy? Any discussion about increasing a wealth tax or adding a new tax to target high wealth target high wealth individuals is just the politics of envy. If we're going to get really emotive like that.
Has she said that in response to this letter? Because this is clearly people who are envious, who have signed this. I think that this needs to become a bipartisan issue. I think this is something like trade and defense and climate change that we just have to stop using as a political football. This is bad for all of us. And I think, let's grow up, people. Let's sit down and say these are things that they are must-haves for our society. And we've just all got to agree that, that we're going to have a fair taxation system. We're going to stop advantaging unproductive asset classes like housing speculation. The National Party knows that this is not good. Even the ACT Party knows that this is not good stuff to do, and we got to stop using it as a political football. It's not good for any of us. Doesn't matter who's in power.
So here's the hurdle, yeah. And I heard it today with Sir Ian, who was talking to Kerry Woodham on News Talk ZB, and she's my example of this for tonight because I heard it from her. But I imagine this is common from people who have means, and I'm not even talking about that 314 families, but people who are doing okay, right? The often refrain from them is, I'm happy to pay my tax, but I can't stand the government waste. And so how do we get past that? Because that could also just be used as an excuse forever to not pay as much tax. You could always be using that, even because what I hear often is waste from a government means that's not how I want my government to spend my money. But if the opposing side wins and they're the team I support, I'm okay with how they spend it. So, waste is relative. What one person thinks is waste, someone else doesn't. How do we get past that idea of, people who are, I'm not even talking about wealthy, but doing all right, to stop that adage of, but they're so wasteful, I don't want to give them another cent?
I'm not sure that the numbers show this to be the case. If you look at what the government money is spent on, the big areas that it's spent on, was it Ian that was just saying that, social welfare is the biggest one of them?
He said social welfare, then health and education, I believe, were the three. One, two, three.
Yes. So I'm not sure that you can say that those things are wastefully spent. There will be measures of efficiency in different governments around the world, and there will be ways of doing this better and worse. And we've got to have a focus on doing it better. If we're going to build a world-class education system, there will be ways in which you set about doing that. Copying the best practices around the world, learning from who is doing this best of all. And yes, you want to do things efficiently, but I'm not sure that there is a lot of waste, and that's something that you deal with separately. You know, you have some measures of efficiency and productivity of government departments. My experience has been mixed. You know, that you have some very, very good civil servants. My experience has been that things are not always done better by privatizing them. You know, we had a big wave of privatizations in the late 80s, and a lot of those things were being much worse were done much worse when they were privatized. Our national rail system, for instance, was destroyed by being privatized. So you get efficiency and inefficiency in both public and private businesses. And I'm not an expert in the data on this.
It's been really good talking to you,
but
Phillip.
I agree with you that I think it has been used as an excuse not to do anything, and that's not the right thing. We know that we have to deal with these issues if we want to have a successful economy and a bright future, and we have to move to deal with them. And separately from that, you focus on efficiency. You don't use it as an excuse not to do anything. That's just stupid.